Hello and welcome to the SME Focus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. If you're new to this show, or as a reminder, the show aims to highlight aspects of UK manufacturing or topics of interest to SMEs. My guest today is Louise Slade, Chief Operating Officer of Deep Manufacturing, and they manufacture large-scale metal components using 20-wire arc additive manufacturing machines. They were initially formed to manufacture underwater pressure vessels, and the business can provide large-scale metal parts which are required at speed, such as those used in offshore maritime, energy and aviation industries. So something we will get onto shortly. Hi, Louise.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Not too bad at all. So thank you for coming on to SME Focus, and we also kick off by going back in time and trying to put a signal point onto it. So I've read, if LinkedIn is to be believed these days, that you studied business studies and you graduated in the summer of 2001. So that was Alicia Keys singing Falling and Lady Marmalade with Christina Aguilera, Lil' Kim, Maya and Pink. So it was a memorable year, memorable music.
Great,
and Tony
music
Blair was
era.
re-elected. Yes, indeed. I'm sure we're all guilty of still dancing around to that occasionally, and probably will for a long time to come. So I guess my first question to kick off is, why did you choose business studies and where did you think you were going to go? What was your reason behind it and your vision of your future at that tender age?
Yeah, I think like many people at that age, I was very much in the bucket of not having a really clear or defined plan of what I wanted to do. So having excelled at business studies at school, I was being encouraged by a rather strong-willed mother to kind of go down the finance and accounting route, but just felt that business studies gave me a bit of a broader foundation, covered kind of all the different aspects as well as the finance and accounting. So much to my dismay, my mother was right, and I excelled further in the accounting side. So I did kind of specialise in that as I progressed. But that was the main reason, really, because I didn't have a clear career path. I knew I wanted to work in the business side of things, and I knew I actually really enjoyed things like cadets at school and was very heavily involved in that. So there was a while there where I was contemplating role in the military, and felt that kind of the accounting side and business side would have been best suited for me. But that was my main reason for following that path. And I think fast forwarding to now, I never would have put myself where I am now, but I did kind of envisage a career doing something in management with regards to kind of the finance side. So that was the 18-year-old decision making.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I know your first role, you were there for 12 years, so you could have kind of done a military service and come out at the end with a pension. So instead of the military, you chose to go and work for Unite, which many of us know as the place for all the student accommodation. And you started, I think, as business change manager and moved up to senior finance business partner. So pursuing this sort of passion for the accountancy side as well. Can you tell us more about your 12 years there at, a somewhat niche but very large and very sort of, I would imagine in many ways, challenging business with 150 plus properties, 23 cities and a student angle to it. So how was your life with Unite?
Yeah, it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed my time there, actually. And there are a few kind of indulgences in other industries prior to that, which didn't go onto LinkedIn. But I think starting with Unite, it gave me a good opportunity to get involved in lots of different areas. So going into kind of the finance team primarily, I then very quickly realised that I wasn't what you would call a traditional accountant who likes to sit there balancing the books and doing your debits and credits. It was much more kind of the operational and business focus that I enjoyed. So I very quickly got into different roles where I was able to do that, work with the business, support the business, and understand it as well. So it gave me a great opportunity to look at all the different areas. They were owner-operator, so did everything from kind of surveying, selecting land, and then the construction, then right through to kind of operations and property management. So it was a large organisation for me to get a lot of exposure to different functions and different roles within the various teams. During that time, it grew really quickly, so I was in quite an exciting growth phase for them. And when I started, I think they only had about 50 properties. So
Wow.
over the period they grew quite quickly, and we went from kind of an AIM listed to kind of FTSE 100 during the time I was there. So saw, internally in terms of processes and ways of working to get to that point as well. There was a lot of change. Thoroughly enjoyed my time there. It gave me lots of challenges as well. Had both my children whilst I was there, so yeah, great support from them. But I think the thing I loved from being in such a large organisation was the exposure you got and the opportunity to grow personally as well. So all you had to do at the time was put your hand up to say you were interested in something, and if the role was there, then you got the opportunity to step into that. And I thoroughly took advantage of that in terms of working with the different elements of the business, different people within the business as well, and seeing kind of the different cultures within teams as well. That was really interesting to get into. And as a finance business partner, in the end, kind of having to adapt your style to work with the different areas, whether that's with the development team, or whether it's with the facilities team or the IT or legal teams. They all operate slightly differently. So getting exposure to what they're doing and understanding why they're doing it and how that kind of feeds into the wider business objectives and mission, but also kind of having to have that finance slant on things. It was a really interesting time, and I think 12 years flew by, to be honest. It was it didn't feel like 12 years.
I can imagine. So you went through this period of massive change, and I guess also an awful lot of change with the scale and becoming FTSE listed, for example. But I know that you then moved across to a similar business, but US owned and also multi-country based organisation, so as finance director. So was that different? How would you compare the two? Did you learn different things, different challenges in working for a US business and across countries?
It was vastly different, to be honest. It was, whilst there was, as you can imagine, some familiar faces there being in the same industry, the way the business operated was very different, which brought different challenges for me in my role and kind of leading the finance team. The acquisition strategy was very different, so it was spreading itself and growing globally through acquisition of existing kind of student housing operators, and rather than being owner operator, it was a property manager on the behalf of various different investors. So there was another slant to that in terms of investor relations and reporting, which brought its own challenges and exciting times, particularly during COVID, trying to kind of manage investor expectations as well as customer and other stakeholders. So yeah, it was really interesting business to be within, and I think growing the finance team there as well. We actually started. I opened the finance team in Bristol. Initially, it was just a team of 2 of us, with a couple of business partners in France and Germany and Spain as well. And so yeah, then having to bring the whole finance function into the UK. Which included everything from kind of your traditional accounting, your foundational and transactional sides of finance, such as payables and sales ledger, etc. Grew the team there up to about 35 in the space of a couple of years, and putting in a new ERP system as well, which was fun. So yeah, lots of challenges, but very, very different business to Unite, although they, outwardly they look very similar. In terms of kind of the brand and what they're how they're positioning themselves in the market, but the way of working is very, very different. And I think again the people kind of made that, really, in terms of everybody was working at a very fast pace. And again, like I said, during COVID, that added some additional challenges, particularly for a finance function where we've got to make sure everything's right for all stakeholders.
Yeah, that sounds like a total nightmare being in that sector for COVID, but I guess it was for many. Obviously, this show has a very heavy lean towards SMEs and manufacturing. Thankfully, for those that are wondering why 10 minutes into the show we've not talked about manufacturing, your title is up on the screen, so you've been reassuring people all the time that your life is now manufacturing. You've defected to the honourable side, or whatever we can
Yes.
describe manufacturing as. So let's talk a little bit about that. So you left the student accommodation side and moved across as head of advanced manufacturing for a business called Deep, or an R&D. Sort of really concentrating at that point on R&D. And can you tell us the aims of Deep and maybe a timescale for the vision of Deep? And I'm leaving it up in the air to allow you to describe what Deep is to the viewers.
Great, thank you. Yeah, of course. So Deep exists to make humans aquatic. That's our mission statement. And what we mean by that isn't kind of growing gills or doing any weird kind of sci-fi-esque research, but it's enabling access to the oceans to allow kind of humans to live, work, and thrive underwater. And we're doing that through subsea technologies. So it's Deep's core product offering is subsea habitats. So looking at manufacturing habitats for humans to go up to depths of 200 meters, where they can live, work, and operate for up to 28 days. They will, and I'm not an engineer or a scientist, so please nobody get upset when I'm not using the correct terminology, but they will be down there for up to 28 days and be able to dive out of a moon pool into the ocean, where they will be enabled to do their studies on the seabed at that depth. So what traditionally happens at the moment is there would be a really expensive, really energy intensive kind of dive support vessel on the surface. The divers would dive down, take a couple of hours to get to the right pressure, probably have very limited time at that depth doing the work that they need to do, whether that's research or surveying the seabed, watching the sea life or the different specimens that are there to observe. And then they would have to take 4 or 5 hours to slowly return to the surface and decompress. So saturation diving is kind of that process that I've just explained. So actually the amount of time spent doing the work that they wish to be doing is minimal in kind of an 8-hour working day, if you like, because most of that time is taken getting down to depth and then decompressing slowly, coming back up. So the reason for having these habitats is to enable them to spend the full 8 hours at depth working, observing, doing science, doing research, and being able to then translate that information back up to the surface. So these habitats are there and enabling that to happen, so they can be down there for 28 days, live there. They've got plenty of space. It's quite luxurious in the sense that most subsea habitats, because we're not the first people to do this, this was kind of back in the 60s and 70s prior to the space race. A few people did do kind of habitat diving and lived underwater for a period of time. Okay. So most people would be used to very confined spaces, whereas here they'll have individual bedrooms. They'll have that personal space whilst they're down there to be able to, I was going to say disconnect, but obviously they'll still be aware of their surroundings, but to switch off for a little bit and relax ahead of the next day's diving. So that's the habitats, and in order to do that, we kind of identified a few challenges, and one of those was how we're actually going to manufacture the pressure hull. So the pressure hull is in layman's terms, the external shell, or the outer pressure vessel that will contain all of the inner fit out, the auxiliary systems, the electricals, etc., that will then serve the people that are living down there. So there are procurement constraints, long lead times with traditional fabrication, and so we looked into additive manufacturing, and that is how Deep Manufacturing kind of was born out of that requirement, which I won't go into too much detail on that just yet, because I know we're going to talk about that a bit later. But we're starting to develop kind of how this all comes together, and very, very quickly have kind of advanced that mission, and the wider Deep group are hoping to get the first habitat in the water by the end of this year in 2025. So progressing very quickly, considering we've only been in operation for a few years. So moving ahead quickly with that.
Okay, where would that first habitat be in the world, and what do you see the main market driver for them? What industry, or what research, or what would drive people to live for prolonged periods of time at deep sea?
So it's going to be primarily for science and research initially. The first deployment is going to be in the US. So that is sites are currently being surveyed at the moment. So that will be kind of releasing more information on that very shortly. But the like I said, the main aim for this product is for science and research, but also looking at different training aspects as well. So there's kind of adjacent industries that could benefit from using this space and this capability, such as space as an example. So having to train people in a safe environment where they can do simulated training. Being underwater is quite similar in terms of the restrictions and the controls that you need in place to be able to kind of to survive, quite bluntly. That's the same in terms of, you know, those requirements are the same underwater as they are in space. So yeah, there's lots of kind of alignment to adjacent industries that this could be used for.
Okay, so if Deep is the company that is putting together the underwater accommodation, let's say, then Deep Manufacturing is the business that you're the chief operating officer of, and is, I'm guessing the clue is in the name, is dedicated to manufacture those units, and let's talk about the pressure cells, and then also you're looking at selling that particular capability onto other industries. So can you tell us a bit more about the aims of Deep Manufacturing in particular, and where you see your particular skill sets being sold into?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, we exist to manufacture the pressure hulls for human occupation for Deep. And we've spent the last couple of years looking at additive manufacturing solutions. So we have settled on a DD arc, which uses a wire arc to melt a feedstock wire and essentially deposit layers of that metal in an additive fashion. So as opposed to subtractive, rather than we're not starting with a billet and taking away, we're adding layer by layer. And we'll be using that technology to build the pressure vessels. In terms of kind of how we see that progressing, we're already, like I said, fulfilling the internal Deep customer requirements and building the pressure hulls for the habitats. And we're going through certification with that as well. So one of the key things for us is kind of the safety and the certification and adherence to the regulations in the industry, right from the design process all the way through to kind of the final part, test and inspection before deployment. So we've been working really closely with the Classification Society in the marine and materials sector called DMV, one of the largest ones out there. And essentially what they're doing is making sure that we adhere to their rules and standards. So looking at our materials and getting those approved, looking at our facilities, our processes, our technologies, and ensuring all of these things adhere to strict rules and standards. And then once we've kind of got all of those approvals in place, we then move on to the part qualification. So they actually come in and witness the manufacturing, witness all of the post-processing, and then witness the assembly and test and inspection as well. And then we get that certification to say that we're adhering to those high standards, which is, you know, really critical in this. It's a safety critical component, particularly for the Deep products, putting humans underwater, very safety critical. So yeah, we're really proud of that, and we've actually just going through our last audit with DMV for the approval of manufacture, which is a huge tick in the box. It'll be the first globally for pressure vessels for human occupation. So very, very proud of that. And the team are working exceptionally hard to get that over the line during the audit. But then I guess commercially, you know, there are lots of adjacent industries that could make use of this technology and the manufacturing capabilities that we have. So we have 20 of these systems on site. We're based in Bristol, down in the southwest UK. And we've currently got various arrays of this technology in terms of the configurations. So we've got a number of single arms that have build volumes of up to 3.2 meters in diameter and 3 meters in height. right through to a multi-arm configuration, which is currently going through its production readiness test. And this is it's a world first, and it's going to be an amazing capability. So it can print up to 6.2 meters in diameter and 3 meters in height, which is the size we need for some of the deep internal products. But opening that up to adjacent industries, there's a lot of demand from energy, oil and gas, defence, maritime, lots of different industries. So anything with large metal components that have kind of a low volume, high value is kind of the market that this really appeals to, and where we're getting the most interest from in terms of our customer base.
If I was to think of the structures as sort of very large, like sections of a thermos flask almost,
Yes,
what's the proportion between this diameter of the feedstock wire and the wall that you're building?
So in terms of the wire feedstock, it's about 1.2 millimeter wire, and our approvals will allow us to print from 12 millimeters up to 80 millimeters at the moment. Okay. So we can go really quite thick. And then for the deep product range, we will be going up to 250 millimeter thickness as well. So yeah, there's some very thick walls that we need to manufacture for the high stress areas and the different kind of mating surfaces, that kind of thing, for some of these habitats. But our initial approvals are for up to 80 millimeters, so still very thick walls.
Okay, so you've obviously been involved in a very major shift from an R&D focused organisation to actually an additive manufacturing operation, producing product and all the realities of a manufacturing business. Can you tell us some of your biggest sort of operational challenges, maybe some of the cultural challenges and successes you've had making that transition? And particularly, I guess, an aim of this show is also to offer some advice and pointers to the audience. So maybe some lessons learned, whether they were successfully learned or came out of resolving things. But yeah, how did you go through all of those very tough, but I would imagine very rewarding transitions?
Yeah, it's been a really exciting time, and like you said, challenging time as well, because we've been on quite a steep learning curve during that phase. So coming out of kind of R&D, as you call it, and into 24/7 production, which we did in March this year, it is a challenging period, and it is a real cultural change for the business, because I guess you could say kind of that R&D, it's very focused on iteration and accuracy and kind of trying to strive for that perfection and constantly kind of iterating and having the time to do that. Whereas production, we're shifting that mindset to, you know, we need uptime on the robots, we need precision, we need accuracy, we need to know that we've got the repeatability there. And that's what our approvals have been kind of very focused on, is the repeatability of our processes, and making sure that, you know, the machines and the technology do what we say it's going to do each time, every time, with precision. So it's been a really challenging shift for us, and kind of going from that mentality, so the cultural side of it is probably one of the biggest challenges. And knowing that, you know, we've got customer contracts that we need to deliver on time, and it's not just us kind of, you know, tinkering around and having a go and seeing what the outputs are, and then trying again and tweaking things, which, you know, I don't mean any disrespect to what the team have been doing there, as obviously it's far more complicated. But it's been one of those times where we've had to go, okay, right, it's been a big investment in the team to get that mindset and that cultural change, because you know, a lot more focus on quality, a lot more focus on processes, getting the right operational team in to support 24/7, so ensuring that we've got all the on-call provisions, making sure that the team are supported and understand, so have the right training in place. Additive is still quite a new industry, so we've had challenges there in terms of, you know, there isn't a kind of a bog standard training course that we can send people on, so having to have devised that ourselves in many cases, and also go through kind of validating that and ensure it's appropriate again, referring back to kind of standards and certifications, the people and the processes are as important as kind of the output and the final product. So there's been a lot of time and effort put into that. And I think some of the learnings are where we've tried to accelerate things too quickly, and kind of thought we had the foundations and the basics in place. And then actually, once you start running with it in a live environment, you very quickly see where the cracks are. And having to react to those is a lot harder than actually planning properly in the first instance. So the areas where we've planned and taken our time and got things right, it's really made a huge difference. And that's one of the biggest areas for us, is having gone 24/7. It was really important that we had all of those processes and procedures in place, and listening to the team as well is probably one of the important things. So they're the people on the ground doing this, on the shift patterns, using the technology that we've put in place, the processes, and so having that constant iteration of continuous feedback and continuous improvement has made a real difference, I think.
And how did you go from starting manufacturing to the full switch across to 24/7? Was it a phased approach, because you've got to balance sort of the precision, the repeatability, and I guess also the being able to prove the integrity of what you're making? So I'm assuming that wasn't a one day you started at 24/7. So how was that process sort of handled?
No, so we started probably back in June of last year, of 2024. So started with kind of the process development, getting our ISO 9001 certification for our QMS system, and then kind of continuously improving that, continuously reviewing it. We did a trial period of 24/7 for a period of 2 weeks in November last year, to stress test some of those processes and to ensure that the support functions could step up and cope with that, because it's not just the people on the workshop floor, if you like. It's making sure that our IT teams, their 24/7 support provision works, and all of the supply chain as well, ensuring that we've got that in place. Being a relatively new organisation, we're quite small in terms of headcount as well, so we're just up to 35 at the moment, and making sure that you've got the depth in the team, particularly where there's certain functions within the business that might only be one or two people, such as health and safety or quality. It's making sure that they have the depth to support 24/7 as well, and we're not kind of overloading certain areas of the business in that regard. So that trial period, we really learned a lot from doing that, which meant that when we got to March, which was kind of a pre-planned date, we were in a really good position to kind of flick the switch and press go. I think one of the key reasons for doing that as well was not just kind of the operational side of things, but also technically as well. It's better for the systems to be operating 24/7. You get more consistent results. You get that repeatability from 24/7 rather than stopping and starting because it's the end of the day or it's the weekend and no one's in. So we get better material results as well as kind of operational efficiency.
You mentioned earlier the challenge of finding people because you're in a young industry with additive manufacturing. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've gone around developing your workforce, and I guess addressing the skills gap is a challenge faced by nearly everybody who watch this program. So what's your particular take on developing people and the skills gap?
Yeah, great question, because it has been a real challenge for us, and particularly with this additive side of the industry that is excelling is very much in kind of polymers and powder bed fusion, and not necessarily technologies or metals that we're working with. So when we're recruiting, you very rarely get a CV in your inbox that has ticks all of the boxes that you would like it to. So the skills gap is a big risk for us, because then balancing that with actually then do we have people with experience of fabrication and pressure vessels or subsea technologies. Again, there's they call it the big shift change in the industry in terms of that's some of those skill sets are a dying trade, struggling to get welders in the UK, for example, and how do we make sure that it's not just someone who's just done a course and ticked a box, but actually knows what good looks like and where the challenges are and how different materials respond differently. And so getting that balance has been a real challenge for us. So we found that we're kind of looking, when we're recruiting, we're really looking at people with the right mindset and the right aptitude to learn, and have developed, like I said earlier, an in-house training course for our additive technicians, and really focusing on developing them in-house. We do have some great experience in the team as well. So we, like I said, we have balanced that with people who've had 20 plus years experience in traditional fabrication. So in terms of the products and the components that we're making, they're very aware of that end product and the quality that we're looking for. So bringing those two together has made a really nice kind of gel for us in terms of, okay, we're getting the aptitude and the willingness to learn, or people who have come from maybe CNC machining backgrounds or other additive industries and definitely have kind of some of the base knowledge. And we're finding that the additive DD arc is the bit that's easier to teach that than to get somebody who has that but has got absolutely no experience or no knowledge of welding or fabrication or subsea components. So it's still something that we need to focus on and we need to get better at, absolutely. And I think the industry as a whole needs to address some of these challenges. We're looking at kind of apprenticeship schemes, graduation programs, and how can we make sure that the learning, I guess, of the next generation is focused in the right place, so that we are getting those kind of experienced learners who can then come in and apply that to industry, because it's going to be a constant challenge for us as we scale. We're currently only in one location, looking to scale within the UK and internationally as well. So this is going to be a kind of a repetitive problem for us in terms of how we make sure that we upskill everybody as quickly as possible. And again, going back to kind of the standards and certifications that we're holding ourselves to, making sure that they have the right skill sets to understand that and to operate the equipment to get the right outputs is really key for us.
Okay, interesting. And the machines that are actually doing the deposition, are they standard machines that have been adopted to your application, or are they largely bespoke machines adopting a common technology or an uncommon technology? How would you describe the actual process that you're doing in terms of how bespoke versus off the shelf it is?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. So we've got some what we would say are very kind of traditional elements to our systems, and then there are bespoke elements as well. So one thing, when we were looking at purchasing our systems, we were very aware that we weren't purchasing this for an R&D project. We were purchasing these with the intention of industrializing them and going into full-scale production. So we didn't want a system that was cool to play with in an R&D environment, but then would never cope with 24/7 running an operation. So we went with some kind of, I wouldn't say off the shelf, but some very well tested and tried robotic arms, and then an industry standard MIG welding torch. That is from one of our partners in the Netherlands, and they supply thousands on a production scale globally. So it's a very well used torch on the end of the robotic arm. But then we do have some integrated software and control and monitoring equipment that was, it took us a while to select a partner to work with on that. And that is very bespoke to our needs. And we have done some further bespoke development on that, particularly for the 6-arm configuration that I mentioned. So we are doing a little bit of both in terms of the systems that we're using. We're continuing to look at the requirements there. So we further adapted that in terms of the configurations that we've got installed here. So some of the systems that we've now combined with manipulators. So we've got a single axis and a 2-axis manipulator that are configured with the robotic arms. We've also got what we're calling internally is the rollerbot. So one that's kind of looking more towards the assembly side of things. So doing the circumferential welds to assemble the pressure hulls. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that we can kind of adapt those systems to our needs and our customers' needs as well.
Okay, but from a training point of view, it's a mixture of known technology, known products, and then a sprinkling of secret sauce. You're not, at least,
yes,
as you say, going down the road trying to train people on totally bespoke R&D machines that will vary from each other. So
no, not at all. And like I said, we knew we had this kind of production environment in mind when we purchased these. So that was very much kind of forefront in the decision making, was that they needed to be easily configurable and able to kind of train and operate as well in a 24/7 environment.
Okay, well, it's been interesting to try and understand the product. I have to admit at the outset, I didn't expect you to say 200 meters deep, DMV approval, and I didn't expect you to be based in Bristol. I had a sort of Scottish location in my mind for
Oh, really?
Subsea. So there you go. I've learned at least 3 main things today. Talking outside of the office, sort of question that tend to ask the interviewers then. So taking it away from deep sea, maybe. Many people are going to watch this over the weekend. So can I ask you what topic you enjoy talking about to somebody in the kitchen or at a party or at the pub? Or do you still talk subsea? Do you talk, what topic would you be likely to talk about if you were to have a chat with somebody?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's quite difficult to avoid subsea, because once people realise who I work for and what I do for a living, they've got lots and lots of questions. Yeah. So if it's meeting people for the first time, it's hard to avoid that. Generally, though, it would probably involve either travel or the turmoil of being a mum of 2 teenage boys, or those kind of topics. Cooking as well. There's a lot of discussion around different chefs and that kind of thing, with one of my sons training to be a chef. So yeah, there's lots of conversations around that at the moment.
Okay. And the traditional final question is to ask, what have you got planned, or what do you hope to achieve in the next 12 months? And that can be work.
So yeah, a lot of my focus at the moment is with work. So like I said, we're currently going through DMV audit, so that's going to be a big win for us, and something we've been working on for over 12 months now, in partnership with DMV. So getting that over the line in the next couple of weeks will be fantastic. And then it's opening the doors commercially as well. So focusing on the deep products, getting a habitat in the water, and seeing what else is out there from the external market and how we can help support that. Because one thing additive does do is it meets all the same standards and requirements as traditional casting, forging, but in a lot quicker period of time. So we can more than half some of the production times using additive, because we're printing net near shape, so it's a lot faster in terms of a manufacturing method. So keen to see where that takes us and the direction that deep manufacturing are going to go in.
I think it's going to be very interesting for people to learn about business and your offer going forward, in that it comes from a safety critical mindset and the whole DMV audited approach, as opposed to a glorified new technology that, where's the credibility? Well, those are 2 very powerful credibility ticks to put to it. So that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and it's been important that we kind of do that as we go along. We didn't want to kind of leave that to the end. So yeah, it's been really important that we've been working with DMV from the very beginning. Like I said, on our materials, our processes, our facilities, and the final product as well.
Excellent. How do people go about finding out more about deep, and in particular deep manufacturing, and how would they follow or contact yourself?
So we're all over LinkedIn, so deep manufacturing, and there's deepmanufacturing.com as well. So yeah, they can contact myself or the business via the website fairly easily. We did have a feedback once that was like, why don't you just have a phone number? When I pick up the phone number is on the website as well. So yeah, there's many ways to get in touch with us.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Louise, for being a guest and taking us to a whole different world, so to speak. Do you have a final sentence, question, or observational thought you'd like to close the episode off with?
just really to keep everybody's eyes open, I guess. A lot of the industries that we're working with are very traditional industries, very adverse to change or to adopting new ways of manufacturing. I think what we're doing is just another manufacturing method. I think let's not get carried away with additive. We're meeting, we've got that equivalency, if not higher standards with what we're doing, because it is new. We're having to go through a lot more rigorous testing. The scope is really wide. So yeah, just be open to kind of looking at this as a solution and adopting it. It's a great technology, and is really going to transform many industries, I think, over the next few years.
Cool. Well, thanks for that. Well, I'll give the usual wrap up to the episode by saying, if you'd like to get in touch with the show with a comment, a suggestion, or more importantly, if you'd like to appear in a future episode, then please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc.com or contact myself, Stuart Whitehead, or Joe Reynolds. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. From me, Mark Weymouth at Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. Have a good weekend. Cheers.